Okay, so hello and welcome to Tea and Tarot, our first one. This is pursuant to our Art of Tarot class that we took last fall. And if you weren't part of that class, no worries, I'll offer it again if you'd like. But this is a monthly group where we're going to explore different topics related to reading the Tarot for ourselves and for others, working with spreads, card meanings, and unique interpretations. And so what I want to do is, just to get us all in the room today, is to invite everybody, if you have your deck, take out your deck, give it a shuffle, and we're going to pull one card that just is going to be one kind of message about how we're showing up today.
Hawk and I both.
These little noises. One
like
card
to know what's
about
going on today too.
how we're showing up today. So do whatever process you have for your readings. And then draw one card and we'll go around and we'll each share something about our card. So true. I'll wait till you have your card. What did you get?
I got the reverse King of Cups.
Reverse King of Cups. All right.
I got the Temperance card,
Mm-hmm.
which is like transformation and just like this is new for me, so I'm like here to be with everyone and
Right.
kind of hopefully transform some more knowledge.
Great. Well, let's go around and I'm sorry, I didn't do this
Oh,
right.
you got the world. I thought you got the fool.
No, I got the world, but you got the fool. Oh, that's good. And we're sitting on the same couch. Let's go around and introduce ourselves by name, so everybody knows each other. And I'll just turn the computer so that the folks in the internet can see the folks here in person. So why don't we start with you, Bliss, and tell us your name and your card and what you think it might mean for you showing up today and getting this card.
My name is Bliss, and I actually chose the reversed King of Cups. And for me today, I think that means it's an emotional piece for me. But beyond that, I'm not quite sure.
Okay, well, we'll think about it and we'll come back to it. We'll see what's revealed during our class. And you were saying, and if you'll just say your name and your card one more time so the ladies in the computer.
My name is Jenny, and I pulled the Temperance card, which to me means transformation and just like an openness to learn more.
Great. And then I'll turn us back so you can see over here. Go ahead, Laura.
I got the Hermit, and I don't know. Can I show you my card? Can you see my card? Can you see it?
Yeah. And can we see it?
Yes. And so to me,
And show them.
This is me on my path, learning, carrying the torch forward so that I can share it, the knowledge that I'm gaining for all, kind of what I'm doing.
What you're doing. Literally what you're doing.
What I'm doing.
Wonderful. How about you?
Anka, I got the fool.
What do you think that means for you today?
Well, I like it because it's always like the journey that's beginning.
It is. It's a nice
And that you don't
beginning.
know where you're going, but you're ready to step off the world.
It's very interesting because we did all that cleaning, and then yesterday was the official first day of Chinese New Year.
Yeah.
So you are at the beginning of a new year.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about that. Like,
Because she's an acupuncturist, so
yeah.
it really makes sense for a new
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah,
Mhm.
what that might be, I don't know. So that's kind of the school, is you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
I don't know what
That's
I
right,
don't
but you're
know,
ready.
but I'm ready.
Well, I drew the world, and so I'm Yesha. Hi. And I drew the world, and oh, thank you. And it's so interesting because I just, as you were arriving, was getting out of a reading with a client who has been on the road for 19 months, traveling the world, Africa, India, Indonesia, Europe, you name it. And while we were talking, I said to him, you know, last year, because he said, I just got off of 19 months of a journey and now I'm ready for another journey. And this card came up in his reading. And I said, oh, well, you know, I aspire to that. I would like to have that kind of life too, where I'm traveling that for, you know, like months and months at a time. I said last year I managed 3 months to be gone for 3 months, and that was a big deal. But I said, now that I've heard 19 months, oh my gosh, you know. So I'm showing up today with the spirit of worldly adventures. That is what's in my mind. And I've got one more spot to fill on my pilgrimage to Crete, and then we'll have it full. So in the computer, we have Diana and then Christine. And I'm going to turn you, we have to get a better way so that I'm not having to turn you all the time. But go ahead, Diana. Tell us about your card.
I'm Diana, and I pulled the Two of Pentacles. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, and for me, it's perfect for today because I started my storytelling class. So I've been trying to balance that with the tarot classes and then just life in general. So this card is showing that I'm getting close to being in balance, but it's going to be a challenge.
Oh, yes, you'll make it, but you'll just make it.
Thanks.
All right. Well, just for today. And how about you,
Okay.
Christine? Bring yourself off of mute and
there we go.
great.
It's playing with me. I got the 10 of Cups, and I've had a very content, fluid day, and I went out to the lake and I got some beautiful pictures, and you can see how the kids are playing in the water and this clouds, and that's sort of how it was out there. It was really beautiful, and I found a large heart rock.
Oh, I saw it. It's beautiful.
That's amazing. I love that. Well, perfect. Right place, right time, right circumstances, and everything just comes together. Well, I'm going to keep you all trained on me for the rest of our lecture portion of our class. So what I'd like to invite everybody to do now is to dig into your deck. Keep your card that you drew for yourself to the side somewhere so that you can look back at it. Dig through your deck, and we're going to find our Emperor card and our Fool card.
I thought yours was something different.
I think mine is something different, but I don't know. I'll have to look.
For your Emperor?
Yeah.
Oh. There's my Fool. And once you've got your, your cards, don't worry, you have a minute here. But just once you've got your cards, I just want you to take a minute and just look at them. Look at the pictures on the cards. No, Magician is its own card. The Emperor is number 4.
Oh, good, thank you. That'll make it easier to see which one.
You have this deck. Did you already look through it? Want me to look?
Oh, here. There's some more of these.
Okay. Here, set those there, and I'll maybe it's in here.
Okay.
Okay, not in there. Keep it in your other stack. I see what you mean. Sort of some that are unusual.
Mhm.
The Lord.
The Lord. Oh, got it. Okay, cool.
The Lord. Okay, so take a minute and just look at your two cards next to each other. The Fool and the Emperor. And start by noticing any differences. That's the kind of easier question here. What's different between the two images that you're looking at? For me, there's very vivid, quick to see differences. One of the things that strikes me right away in my two cards is that the Emperor is old and the Fool is young. The age difference is very vivid. But the other difference that's vivid is that the Emperor is sitting on a throne, and it's a stone throne, and the Fool is standing on the edge of a cliff. So there's also a difference in like rootedness, groundedness, and stability with the one, and a kind of like instability with the other. How about you in your decks? What are some of the similarities? What are some of the differences first? And no pressure, but just give a wave when you're ready.
So my Fool is like going on a walk. If he's ready, you can see the air moving by him on his feathers. And then the Emperor is seated, and there's smoke offerings, and you can tell he's revered and knowledgeable. He's old, like you said, he's older. So there's a movement and I already am here.
Yeah, and a staidness. How about some other differences between them?
Well, I noticed on mine that all of this, right? I would say, and that the Fool has the rod on his shoulder with a bag, so he's like a novice yet. He hasn't attained mastery of anything, and the Emperor holds the rod, and so that's already mastery. And then there's a bird in the clouds here, which to me is the air element of intuition and wisdom. So he has the wisdom, and the ram's heads on the
throne
symbolize the same to me.
Excellent. Yeah. So you see that in the stick, there's the walking stick versus the staff of authority, and then there's more air element in a way with the bird of prey flying in the background. And how about over here at this table?
Mine are pretty simple cards. They're definitely not in depth. Mine don't have staffs or anything, but my Fool card is just very simple, where it's like tempting fate, maybe curious, and like young, like not putting a lot of thought into what could happen if they do something. Whereas my Emperor is like stands strong and is this one has like an eel wrapped around, which to me is just meaning that even through maybe dangers or difficult things, it stands strong.
Yeah, that deck. What's that deck? It's very vivid.
It's the Penny Dreadful
deck. Interesting.
But I love it so much. It's so simple, but like has been so spot on for you.
Yeah, it's great.
Like definitely the one. I love it.
May I pick up your cards for a moment and show them to our studio audience? So here's her Fool, Do you see the foot going off the cliff into the crocodile's mouth? And there is the emperor with the eel wrapped around this extremely buff male torso, and very suggestive at that. Male power. I've got the eel of power. All right, very good. And so I think it's really interesting in your cards because you're right, there's the one where stepping in and the other is like standing strong, but they both have, and we'll get into this in a minute with similarities, they both have a toothy creature in a sensitive way. Mm-hmm. And how about you, Bliss? What do you see?
I think for me, my Fool is also forward moving, like on a journey. There is some youth, some curiosity, and compared to my Emperor, who's much more dignified and grounded. And what's interesting to me is the Fool is carrying a rose, and then the Emperor has a field of irises.
Oh,
On this, so yeah, they're very distinctly different.
Very much, and even in the orientation, the one is looking out of the
Yes,
frame, and the other is looking straight on. And may I show for our ladies at home? Here's her Fool and her Emperor. So you can really see the Fool is looking off into the distance with his rose, and the Emperor is sitting there on his throne with his field of irises. All right, and how about anyone inside the internet want to share about your Fool and your Emperor? Yeah, go ahead, Christine, and then Diana.
Well, this is a newer deck for me, so I'm getting used to it. It has the Fool, she's leaning backwards, and she's young, and she's like taking this trusting leap of faith by falling backwards. Even though she's going to be going forward into the unknown, she's backwards here into a pool of the flower of life. Then the male aspect of the Emperor, he's all knowledgeable there. He's sitting there, he is looking away from you, but there's a lot of wisdom, there's spirit coming down. He's got an ankh, which says he has wisdom, and to me, I kind of got he understands the rules of the game because he's holding a chess piece.
Understands the rules of the game. That's well put. That's very elegant about the Emperor. I have to make a note of that in my journal. He understands.
And I think he's sitting on a rock.
And yeah, it looks like he's perched there. How about you? Thank you, Christine. And how about you, Diana?
Most of what everybody said I can see in my cards. The only extra piece is the Emperor, to me, having that eagle there is more of a power sign, and then the Fool having the dog is more playful.
Yeah, there's definitely that playful energy in the dog that isn't quite the same when you see it in the bird of prey. Very good.
Correct.
And how about you, Hung Yu? Did you want to share? If you don't, no problem. But if you do, you can give us a little wave. Either way, I'm gonna now have us look next. We're gonna look for similarities. Now, what is similar between your two cards, the Fool and the Emperor? What do they have in common?
For me, because mine are so simple, I will say that, like you pointed out, there in each card there's a fanged, seemingly vicious predator type animal or creature, reptile. There's body parts in both.
Yeah, I have a question about that deck. Does that deck depict anyone's faces at all? Oh, so there are sometimes faces, but just not always faces.
Yeah, not always
Interesting.
faces. So there's also, like, for instance, if the Fool was to get its toes bit, that's a very sensitive, delicate area. doesn't look like, looks like the eel is guarding the,
the royal
the
package.
emperor's package. But that's also a very vulnerable, delicate spot.
And the depiction of the teeth in both, very interesting how toothy they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say the only other thing, it appears that the emperor is reaching up. I don't know about the fool. One's reaching up. The other one, the toes are pointing down.
Stepping down. I like that. But there's, with the fool, maybe that downward energy. With the emperor, there's an upright energy. Very good. How about other correlations that you see, things that are similar, in fact, between the two? One thing that comes up for me right away, and I'm just using a classic Rider-Waite derivative deck, so stupid simple, is that they both have mountains in the background. So in both of these cards in my deck, there's, with the emperor, craggy mountains behind his throne, and at the fool, he's standing on the cliff, and there's mountains in the background.
Are those mountains or waves?
Oh, I thought they were mountains, because usually if it were waves, it would be, I would think it would be below him, but maybe it's waves.
Looks like water splashing up on his foot.
Oh, I thought it looked kind of like the Alps, because there's like these little mountains down here, and then, but it's interesting because but Pamela Coleman Smith was a genius, and she made it so that we can interpret them however. But I do notice that they both have, to me mountains as the reader of these two, and in mine their staff is in the right hand for both of them. And in the left hand, the fool has the flower, and in the left hand, the emperor has the orb. But so it's, the objects are different in the left hand, but that they're both holding basically a symbolic of the feminine in their left hand, the flower or the orb. Both of those things connote the feminine, and the staff, or the sense of the masculine, in the right hand. And the right hand is my husband here. And the right hand is holding that. And yes, as before, we noticed the fool is holding it like a walking stick, and the emperor is holding it like a staff of authority. But I noticed that they're both holding it in the right hand. And traditionally speaking, in occult science, magic has a right hand path and a left hand path. And the right hand path is symbolized by the masculine, and it's more overt rituals, things of like banishing, protection, watching over or providing for, caring for. And then there's the left hand path, which is more like sorcery, secret magic, women's secret ways, much more associated with the feminine. In Western occult tradition, that's been depicted as the negative, and the right has been depicted as the positive. I myself don't follow that. I follow the Tibetan interpretation of it, which is that the feminine is the positive and the masculine is the negative. And actually in Tibetan Buddhism, like my husband would have it, that the right hand is that the right hand path is the masculine, and I would have it that the right hand path is the feminine. So it is what you are. And so this kind of helps us to sort out some of the confusion that we have in patriarchal culture, where the masculine is generally assigned light, sun, brightness, power, and the feminine is generally assigned moon, darkness, shadow, magic. I think we all have all of it. So anyway, those are my similarities, that they're both holding the staff, the masculine symbol in the right hand and the feminine symbol in the left hand. And that would be according to the Western occult tradition in which Pamela Coleman Smith was steeped. Any other similarities in your cards where you look and you go, what do they have in common?
My cards are different because it's the Druid path, so it's the left-hand path. So they're both holding the staff in the left hand.
They're both holding the staff in the left hand.
Right hand. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Right, and they both have on headdresses.
They both have headdresses. That's true.
One carries the feather, right? The fool has the feathered cap, and this man has the stag.
Has the antlered helmet.
It has the antlered helmet, and they both have capes on. One is green, one is red.
Mm-hmm.
A little more earthy, one's a little more fiery, which is Aries.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I also can't help but notice that your Fool has mistletoe in
Yeah.
his hand,
Yeah.
which is interesting and unusual. Mm-hmm. All right. So, but the thing is, they both are carrying the left hand staff, and they both have an ethereomorphic headdress,
Yeah.
an animal headdress.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. How about any others? Yeah, Laura.
I'm just noticing that my Fool is like decked out, ready for a trip. You know, like he's very dressed, and he also has feathers and ribbons, and he's moving. And then the Emperor is also very regally dressed, very nicely dressed with feathers, and it's like they're both about knowledge. Like, what knowledge do I need? What knowledge do I have? Knowledge.
Very good, very good. And may I just take a quick peek at your Emperor because I didn't get to see him. Oh yeah, and it's interesting too because your Fool has a looks like a fox or a coyote's head, and your Emperor has his face painted and has a headdress of feathers and a staff with a bird's head. So there's something here between your two decks that are very similar about this stereomorphic, masculine, where there's this masculine energy represented by an animal spirit specifically. Interesting. How about you, Bliss?
You know, mine, the similarities are they both have the headpieces. The headpieces are actually the same color. Both have flowers that are in bloom. They're both holding, the Fool is holding his staff in the right hand, and the Emperor is holding the Ankh in the right hand as well. They both have a very similar expression. Yeah, very serious.
They both have a serious expression.
Very serious expression.
And that's very counter to the traditional Fool, which often is like,
Yes.
like ignorance is totally happy, like doesn't know what he doesn't know. Yeah. But in this, your Fool is more somber.
Sorry about. I think they smiled in that
No,
generation.
never. Hey, Albert, would you do me one favor? Would you get my teacup off the floor back there and bring it to me? So how about inside the computer? Anybody notice any similarities between your Fool and your Emperor? And give a wave if you want to say. Okay, go ahead, Diana.
The only thing with mine that other people haven't mentioned is both of mine are looking in the same direction off to the side, like either they're looking into the future or they're just staring ahead. And both headdresses are bird related. One has the feather and the other has the head of the bird.
Got it. So there's an aspect almost where they're looking in the same direction in your deck, which is rear tarot. And I love that. Because that both the feathers and the bird head have a connotation of a visionary nature. You know, certain visionary quality. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. Now I'm gonna not have any more comparisons because now we're gonna do a little exercise. That card that represents you today that you drew, that's gonna go in the middle of your 3-card spread. And I want you to think about what you said about your own card for today, even if it was confusing or nebulous or whether you got a clear message. And I want you to decide if we were doing a past, present, future reading, where would you put the Fool and where would you put the Emperor in your own life right now? Describing it. Are you more like going toward your emperor energy where you want to like manifest something? You've got to kind of command authority. You've got to structure things. You've got to like tick the boxes and obey the rules. Or are you more on the cusp of an adventure? And it's just where you are today. It's not, we're not writing a story of our lives. We're just where we are today. And we're going to set our cards down with the present being the card that you drew today.
But I have the same card twice.
I know. So you, Anka, because you're different, you draw a bonus card.
A bonus.
And I want you to decide between, when you draw your bonus card, between the Emperor and the bonus card, which is the past and which is the present, or which is the future.
Oh,
Past
right,
and future.
okay.
You're going to assign the Emperor and the Fool, past and future, except Anka. And while you do that, just sit your cards. I'm going to pour you some tea.
Whoa.
Beautiful, isn't it? Yes. What was that?
When she took the lid off. Okay, so the card we drew today is our present, past, present, future. So which one goes first and which one goes last? Is what we're looking at.
So present, yeah.
Oh,
What if you're both?
You can't.
I don't know.
so my bonus
I
card is
mean, we
going
are
to
all
be me in the
both, but you
present?
have to choose.
Yes, honey.
Oh, she had gotten that for me. I guess you asked for yours.
Okay.
Say that again, Anka.
My bonus card is me in the present?
Your bonus card, no, your Fool card is you in the present. So you have to decide if your bonus card is the past or the future.
Oh, got it. So me in the present. And my bonus card, oh.
Tea, and if you'd like some honey, there's honey here.
Can you say that one more time? Where the card we pulled today is our present.
Is the present.
Okay, got it.
Yep, in the center. Let me just go, Laura. I'm just going to set this straight for you. Wow. Did you bury it in the earth first?
This is she used this for years.
And our tea that we're drinking today, and for those of you at home who are following along, in case you ever want to make this tea is thyme, marjoram, and oatstraw.
Nice.
Marjoram for memory, thyme for clarity, and oatstraw for calm. Because these are the three qualities that you have to have if you're either a fool or an emperor. You have to be able to remember where you've been so that you won't double back or miss steps, or so that you can remember what pitfalls there were. You have to have the clarity to go forward and make decisions and to make choices. And you want to have the calm to be able to face whatever comes, whether it's adventure or whether it's more structure. So the emperor represents structure, represents determination, represents a certain type of earned authority. The fool has ultimate personal authority. So, you know, where the emperor reports to his people, the fool only reports to himself. So the fool's authority and the emperor's authority are a little bit different. Whereas the emperor has power over, the fool has power from within. The emperor's energy tends to be more structured and more deliberate, more pre-planned and outlined. And the fool's energy tends to be more spontaneous and sometimes haphazard. I'm going to put a little honey in my tea. The card that represents you in the middle, let's start with this concept of authority. If the emperor represents authority that we've had in the past, or not authority, authority that we've earned, and the fool represents authority that just arises from within. Would you like to? What kind of authority does the card represent that you pulled for today? And so I'll give you an example from my own. So I put my emperor in the past and the fool in the future. because as I've been going through the last decade of my life, I worked and worked and worked and worked to get to a particular level of privilege and a particular level of accomplishment. And I was miserable because it meant that then I was subject to everybody's demands and expectations. And I decided that what I really wanted for myself was a far more eccentric and spontaneous life. And so I changed my paradigm almost completely to where I don't really report to anyone anymore but the goddess. I report to one being, and that is the great being. And in everything else, it's pretty much subjective. And my world card represents for me, because the energy of the world is completion, was the completion of, and it's a 10, the world is number 10. I actually had the completion of a 10-year cycle from 2009 to 2019, where I was subject to a lot, increasingly over that 10 years, to more and more demands from other people, until finally I shifted my paradigm massively. And last year, I started to live just in the moment. So for example, I let my calendar change. If somebody was like, what, we had plans on this day, I'd be like, sorry, I changed it. I can't do that today. I let myself disobey all of my own rules that I had made for myself. I had made all these rules for how I was supposed to be. And now I don't want that anymore. I want to just live my life how I want to live it. And I want to just do what I want to do. And I don't want to have to report to as many people in my world. So that's kind of how I'm placing my cards. Anybody else looking at your own cards, does anyone have any kind of like significant intuition or anything that comes up from this exercise, or any creative tension about where do I place the Emperor and where do I place the Fool?
I'll share.
Okay, Laura, go ahead.
So I put the Emperor in the past because I feel like I had to make sense out of the chaos and find grounding so that I could be the hermit and go out in the world and let my light shine like this little guy's doing here. And then I could just be the Fool and go where I want to go and do what I want to do while I'm taking that message to whoever needs to hear it.
Oh, I love that. That's so great. And I especially think with the Hermit between your Emperor and Fool, because the Hermit, I don't know if in your deck it is, but in my deck, the Hermit is holding that lantern and is, oh yeah, that's right. And in my deck, that Hermit is facing the same direction as the Fool. And they're both holding, the Fool is holding his stick and the Hermit is holding his lantern. So they're both like forward, as opposed to the Emperor, which is a little more confrontational in your face. That's an interesting and very much timely with your life, for sure. How about any others? Thank you for sharing that, Laura.
I put my Emperor in the past.
Okay, why did you put your Emperor in the past? Tell us.
Because I've lived a very structured life. You know, going to acupuncture school, being an acupuncturist, all the discipline that's gone into all of that. So I feel like I have mastery of that. But I can't say I'm a master. I'll never say that. I mean, that would be arrogant. But I have mastery of it after 20 years of doing it.
You're allowed to say that here.
Okay.
You could call yourself a master of it if you wanted to here. Not that you know.
And
no pressure.
No pressure. And I put the Fool. Well, that was the card that I drew for me today. So I know that I'm on a journey, and I know that there's going to be something else coming. And I drew, my bonus card was the Two of Wands.
That's so great.
Isn't that funny? So I don't know the wands really well, but it feels like two paths, two decisions.
And remember that the Two of Wands is about taking those tentative steps about who is in your trust circle. And the Two of Wands is also about choosing between two different physical actions, like go here, go there, do this or do that. So there might be a physical path shift that happens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but I feel like that could be coming.
Mm-hmm. And there's still enough, it's anybody's guess to kind of keep us guessing, because it doesn't say like exactly what it's going to be.
No, because it's it's like, it's only an outline of a person holding two wands. It's not it's not a solid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've seen that actual thing.
Really?
Mm-hmm. In real life.
What's
in
it? Is it a
England.
crop circle?
It's a chalk outline of a man. Mm-hmm. The rude man. They call him. He's got a huge erection on the chalk circle. Not in this. They've made this tame, but in this. And in fact, I will tell you, sat with a group of women on that huge erection, on that man, and we sang songs for the happy long-term well-being of all the men in our lives.
Aren't we going?
And we're going to be there on the England pilgrimage this year. We're probably going to see this. So very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Anka. Yeah, it's still anybody's guess, but you're already on the journey. You've been feeling it for months now. Like something's coming and you're not sure what it is. But
Oh my God, more than months. Like
Yeah.
a year or so, at least.
mm-hmm. So it's bubbling up. It's still in the bubbling process. How about over here or online? I don't want to pressure anybody, but if you see something, what feels like, oh.
I have my Fool in the past. Actually.
And tell us a little bit why, if you don't mind.
I put my Fool in the past because I'm still pretty young and have made a lot of creative, spontaneous decisions that didn't always work out well for me. I've always tempted fate, if you will, has kind of just been there for me. And then my present card is the Temperance card, and I really, really feel like I have kind of blossomed into this like transformational type stage in my life where a lot of things that I've been working hard to manifest are starting to kind of come into fruition for me. And so I have the Emperor in the future, in the present and the future for me, because it's going to take a lot of like strength and stability and things for me to I feel like continue that like call to the universe to keep answering those like yes things for me. And I mean, I've always worked really hard. I just have, I'm getting to that point where I'm making a little better decisions and being more responsible.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it sounds like, that's so great, because
There's a lot of reluctance there.
that Temperance card at the center is just so key to something you were saying of kind of just moving from a life which was a little bit more like, let's try this and see what happens, to I have goals and I have objectives that I want to have happen. And they're specific, and I'm working toward them. And I also love that because the Temperance card is also about balance. And so I love that it's almost like you got to have your wild oats, and now you're going to also get to have that structure. And for some people, that is the progression, like in our youth. And then for some of us, what's your sign, if you don't mind me asking, your astrological sign?
I'm a Scorpio.
Oh, you're a Scorpio. So you had the more spontaneous youth, and now you're cultivating that maturity, we might say, that responsibility. For me, I'm a Taurus. I was born old, and I was born with like a sense of like deep responsibility. Like I had to do everything right. I had to get A's in school, and I was really raised by very strict parents. So now I'm like, there's no grades in the universe. There's nobody grading me in the universe.
You're
Like,
both
you know.
on wings.
Yeah, right. So it's right. So I think, you know, I really see that, and I love that interpretation, and that temperance card seems to serve that goal. That,
Totally.
you know,
everything surrounding me right now is like transformation. So I totally am not surprised.
yeah, it's a big time of flux
Yeah.
for you. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. That's great. And how about you?
I think for me, this was very moment in time-ish. The Emperor was in my past. And last week I was working under significant deadlines with some major projects, and had to really focus and hone in on that. And then I actually leave tomorrow for a very big trip.
Oh,
And so the full,
yes.
it was just, and it's with very fun people, and although it's work related, there's a lot of spontaneity and excitement. So this was very apropos for me.
Perfect.
I think this is the one that I'm struggling with.
Well, I wonder if you're going to meet somebody on this trip. I don't know, some magical lover or something like that. But, you know, the other thing is, you know, the reverse King of Cups, the King of Cups I often associate with writing, and writing for yourself, not just, you know, not just like writing reports, like writing like creatively and spontaneously. And if that was reversed and you've been in this comparably really linear, have to get it done kind of mode, maybe have you been feeling a little like your creative side is like clawing to get out?
Absolutely.
That might be that. And so you came to Tarot class. Yes.
Museum of Art.
Yeah.
Done and done.
And you came to Tarot. You did something intuitive, watery, and, you know, dreamy, even though at the end of this week you probably were tired and were like, I probably should just be packing and like staying home.
That's
but
right.
I'm just
It was a
gonna
priority.
spontaneously go and have some fun doing magical things with magical sisters. Well, kudos. You listened to your card today. You didn't even know it, but you did. How about in the computer? Anybody want to share? Yeah, go ahead, Christine.
Well, I put my Fool in the past because I did a lot of, in the past few years, a lot of trusting, taking leaps of faith, moving, trying some new things in what I do for work and stuff. And now I'm, you know, content and enjoying some of the fruits of that labor. And now it's time to step into my power and trusting my intuition. I also feel like I came back to myself. So my self-esteem, my intuition, authority, plus I'm an Aries. So of course, the Emperor is going to take me forward.
Yeah, totally.
So that's what I got.
And what was your card for the day, Christine?
Oh, 10 of Cups.
The 10 is right. Oh, my favorite card.
Gorgeous, beautiful in her deck.
Is it? Oh, marvelous. So, well, yeah. And you know, I think one of the things that's really interesting, I totally agree, knowing that you're in the midst of reconfiguring your business. You've brought your practice now to where you have your home office. It's so much easier for you than having to schlep to different places. There's a groundedness that's coming in that's like, I'm going to condense a certain financial energy in my space through my work. But also, I think it's interesting because I know, you know, without going into the longer story of it, you've had business collaborations and partnerships where you were part of a whole, but now your collaborations and partnerships are more about you are whole and that person is whole, and you're meeting as two wholes to create something together, so you maintain your personal authority more in your business. It's like a lot of bringing it all home to you right now. So
Great.
yeah, and I love and manifesting from that place of happiness, that 10 of Cups, as opposed to manifesting from the place that most of us when we're at work are manifesting from, which is like, oh, I've got to get through my work. You're instead like joyfully manifesting your work. Beautiful. And Diana or Hung Yu, would you like to share from your cards today?
I put the Emperor in the past and the Fool in the future. And I'm struggling with it a little bit because I've always felt that I have always played the role of the fool. I've always been a big risk taker. But the reason that I put the Emperor there is because I believe that the risks that I took gave me a very strong foundation. And it's also now giving me the ability to put the type of work that I used to do, which was more IT and medicine and that aspect of things, project management, put that aside, and the Fool is now going to come back again and give me a new chance and a new risk to allow me to become that more creative person that I want to be.
I love that. And especially as you're manifesting your tarot business there and thinking about doing more holistic things, that makes perfect sense. It's almost like you spent all those years building a resiliency in order to be able to have that freedom now. Very good. Well, so interesting exercise for us to take these two seemingly disparate energies and then bring them into some kind of an order and harmony in this moment so that we can understand them. So I have one more exercise for us to do, and then I'm going to tell us a story, and then we'll close for today. A little story. So looking at your 3-card spread that you've designed today, we're using the Emperor, the World, or the Emperor, the Fool, and one other. I want you to come up with 3 affirmation statements. One that is I was or I am, that suggests something you are already cultivating based on what your past card was. One that is I am right now based on the current card. And one that is what you're going to be manifesting based on that future card. So I will be or I am going to. So we're going to just work on coming with 3 short affirmational statements that take all that we've just processed and make sense of it in a short little burst of 3 sentences. It can also be framed in I used to think or I used to feel or something like that, however you know. Oh, that's great. Yes, let's have another round of tea. I think we have just enough, actually. Yeah, sure. Thank you. And let me know when you feel like you've got your statement. Is there anyone who's still working? Okay, go ahead, Diane. Take your time. Oh, are you done or are you still working? You're done. Okay. Diane, do you want to give us your statement first? Your 3 statements.
Sure. I took my life and responsibilities too seriously. I am aware of my choices and boundaries. I will enjoy my creativity and intuition.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that. Keep that. Write that and stick it on your mirror somewhere. Wonderful. Thank you. And who else would like to maybe share your statements? Go ahead. Go ahead, Christine.
I'm giving it the college try. I was unsure and doubtful of my abilities to have a fulfilling life. I am fully abundant in all areas of my life. I am moving forward with autonomy, authority, and discernment.
Mwah. Love it. Yes, write it down, put it on your mirror. It's the truth.
You passed that college class, sister.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
She did. That's lovely.
So what other ones do we have who would like to share?
Well, I did. I have knowledge and wisdom, and I'm open to whatever may come, and I will know which decision to make.
Oh, that's perfect. It's so true too. That's great with that 2 of Wands. With your a little different format, but it worked out perfectly. I love that. Okay. Nice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to share yours?
I will.
Okay.
So I sat and gathered the grounding, centering, and knowledge that I needed so that I could be brave enough to gather all the stories and my light and travel out into the world and share it with all of the women that need it so that we can know we're not alone.
Beautiful. I love that. And especially how it brings that hermit around in the end. Because we're not, even when we feel like we are.
Right.
Which is so often. Thank you. I love it. And how about at the table here, ladies?
Okay, I have, I was disillusioned with growth. I just keep it simple, but if I was to elaborate on what growth meant for me, I am transforming beliefs. I am turning my stability into strength.
I love that. I am turning my stability into strength. That is so good. I really am tucking that one away. Very nice. Nicely done. And how about you, Bliss?
I have my strength and determination will help me unearth my creativity and spirituality, which will serve me on my journey forward.
Oh, perfect. Elegantly done. And it's kind of one flowing sentence. Mine is also one flowing sentence. Well, maybe 2, but I used to think that you needed to have power to have freedom. And then everything fell apart. And now I know that you have to have freedom to have power.
Mm-hmm.
So these are our affirmations. Let's sit with these and think about them. And for the next month until we meet again, just see how they unfold. But I've promised you a story. And so I think it's, going to our Emperor and our Fool card together. There's a story here of there was a king, and that king was very stoic. He was very stern, but he was very fair. He had a lot of power, money, accumulation, fame, authority, anything he wanted. All he had to do was snap his fingers. And he was so potent and powerful that somebody like a fool would often feel intimidated or nervous based on trying to face him, thinking about him. The fool was afraid of the rules, of the lessons, of the accumulation. And the fool thought, well, we certainly never had anything that fancy around here. One day the king died, and the king's body was laid in state. He was preserved beautifully. He had flowers all around him. Many mourners came by, and the king was buried. And over a course of years, the king's body was devoured by the worms that were under the earth. And the worms that were under the earth one day were dug up by the fool. And the fool took those worms, not knowing that they were from the grave of the king, and took them and went fishing. And he put the worm on the hook, and he put his line into the water and pulled up a beautiful fish. And he took it home, and he cooked the fish, cleaned the fish, and ate the fish. And thus we see how a king can go a journey through the guts of a beggar. Mm. Power isn't always where it seems to be. And one of the things to keep in mind is that in the king's court, the only person who gets away with actually telling him the truth without getting their head cut off is the fool. Mm-hmm. So when we're looking in our lives for times when a situation calls on us to bring forward our power, a lot of times, because we've all been raised in a patriarchal system, we think of that power as being power over. But sometimes the greatest power you can have is to liberate yourself from the expectation of behaving in a particular way. And in that moment, you find the true power, which is just to be yourself. So that's my little story for us for the end of our class today.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
If you wouldn't mind, just since
open to questions.
We kind of went through these. What is like the inverted emperor or the inverted fool?
Good question. In readings, every reader has her own way of coming up with her working about reversals. In my way of working with reversals, I see the reversal as being a little like expect the unexpected, or something's going to be happening about this that we don't know or can't perceive yet. In some conventional settings about tarot, they'll say that the reverse, that a reversal is literally the reversed meaning of the card. So if the fool means freedom, the upside down fool means restriction. But I don't really see it that way myself. I personally see it as every aspect of the card has the capacity for both. So if the fool is freedom, the fool can also be restriction, whether it's face up or face down. But if it's face up, the freedom is what's on the surface, and the restriction might be more subtle, and that's what you have to watch for. Like the fool is stepping off this cliff and doesn't know, and he might fall and hurt himself. That restriction is there, but it's not the focal point of the card. The focal point of the card is this upward moving energy. If the card were reversed, I would say, well, there's still freedom and there's still restriction, but there's an element here that is going to come out of left field that we don't know about. If it were the emperor upright, I'd say that the emperor is about power and authority, the shadow side of the emperor being disempowered or being, what's the word?
Tyrannical.
Well, no, although that's possible. That's possible along with the authority. No, I was thinking more like deposed, like impeached,
Removed.
Removed. So there's in the emperor, the light is, authority. The shadow can be tyranny and deposition. The reversed emperor is maybe your power isn't where you think it is. Maybe it's somewhere else. Look at where you think your power is coming from, or where you think you have power, and question it. Now, this is just my interpretation based on my years of tarot. You will come up with your own. And as you do readings, you'll know more how you see your reversals, because they'll show you, they'll literally show you like, oh, this was this. But that's sort of how I see it. I see reversals as an unexpected vector that's going to kind of fly into this situation that shifts the landscape. And we don't necessarily always see it coming, but it's there. And so the more prepared we can be by knowing both the light and shadow of the traditional meaning, the better. And that was a great question. Thank you, Jenny. And any other questions before we close today? Well, thank you all for coming to Tea and to Row. It was so nice to have you. And just in summary, our Emperor's Wisdom tea today was equal parts marjoram, thyme, and oat straw. And this is a great winter remedy tea. It's really good for clearing congestion, bringing down a fever, relieving a headache, clearing up a cough or a sore throat. It's good for the memory, and it's good for the nervous system. So I thought a nice kind of nerve tonic and mucous membrane tonic would be good for us today. And next month, we meet on the 4th Sunday of the month. And so it'll be February the 29th is a Saturday. So it would be, no, we are meeting in February because I moved the dates of the Tarot class to March. So we're meeting for this in February, but then, 23rd. Thank you. The 23rd. Yeah. So we'll be here at 4 p.m. on February 23rd for this class. And then in March, we have 4 Sundays, March 8th through the 29th of Next Level Tarot, which is for the students who have taken Art of Tarot with me. That's the next level. And then in the spring, I'm going to offer Art of Tarot again. So you'll be invited to come and take that. And if you two ladies would like to, I have a little email that I just send once a month. I'll send the link to this video and the recipe for the tea. And then I'll send you a note about our next one. And if you want, you can give me your email and I'll just add you to it. It's not like a big mailing list. It's just literally our email addresses, and I tell you what's
going on. You want my email address?
Sure. All right, and everybody on the computer, it was so nice to be with you today. Diana, Christine, and Heng Yu, and yes, wearing your antlers. I'll see you all soon. Bye.
Bye.